Welcome to Ancient Chronicles AI. Here, we cross the line between what is known and what is denied, stepping into the Watcher's descent on Mount Hermon. Chapter 1. The Oath Beneath the Stars. Night draped itself over Mount Hermon like a shroud, the stars burning cold and watchful above the silent peak. 200 watchers gathered upon the summit, their forms dimmed so the earth would not tremble beneath their presence. The wind held its breath as their wings folded, for never before had so many of the heavenly host stood together upon mortal soil. Their leader, towering and radiant even in his diminished state, stepped forward with eyes that reflected both longing and defiance. He spoke of desire, of the beauty of the daughters of men, and of the knowledge they wished to share with humanity. But he also spoke of fear, that if one descended alone, the others would abandon him to judgment. A murmur rippled through the assembly, a sound like distant thunder rolling across the bones of the mountain. One by one, the watchers nodded, their resolve hardening like iron forged in celestial fire. They clasped hands, forming a circle that glowed faintly against the darkness, a ring of light bound by forbidden's purpose. The stars above flickered uneasily, as though they sensed the fracture forming in the order of creation. The leader raised his voice, declaring that they would descend together, share the same fate, and bear the same judgment. The oath echoed across the heavens, a vow so binding that even the mountain beneath them trembled. A seal of fire appeared above their circle, marking their rebellion with a brilliance that scarred the night. The watchers bowed their heads, accepting the weight of the choice they had made, knowing there would be no turning back. And as the last word of the oath faded, the heavens grew silent, as though mourning what had just been lost. 200 watchers gather atop Mount Hermon and swear a binding oath to descend together, sealing their fate and the fate of the world in a single, irrevocable moment. Chapter 2. The shattering of the boundary. A tremor rippled through the night sky as the watchers gathered at the summit, their oath still burning like fire upon the air. The veil between realms shimmered above them, a thin, trembling membrane woven from divine law and ancient order. For ages it had stood unbroken, a barrier no angel had crossed without command, but now it quivered beneath forbidden's intent. The leader raised his hand, and the mountain groaned as though it sensed the wound about to be carved into creation. A crack of light split the heavens, jagged and blinding, stretching from horizon to horizon like a celestial scar. The stars flickered wildly, recoiling from the rupture as if they feared to witness what would emerge. The veil tore open with a sound like 1,000 wings breaking, releasing a torrent of radiance that scorched the peak. One by one, the watchers stepped forward, their forms blazing with the remnants of their celestial glory. But as they descended, their brilliance dimmed, folding inward as their bodies reshaped into forms that could walk among mortals. Wings of fire faded into shadows, halos dissolved into faint glimmers, and voices that once shook the heavens softened into human tones. The air around them warped, bending under the weight of beings who no longer belonged fully to heaven or earth. The mountain stones cracked beneath their feet, unable to bear the pressure of their half-fallen presence. Below, the world stirred in its sleep, unaware that the boundary protecting it had been shattered by desire and defiance. The watchers reached the earth at last, their radiance now veiled, their power restrained, their fate sealed by the choice they had made. Above them, the tear in the heavens sealed itself with a mournful sigh, as though creation itself lamented what had just begun. The veil between heaven and earth tears as the watchers descend, their radiance dimming as they take on forms that can walk among mortals, marking the first step of a rebellion that will reshape the world. Chapter 3. The Gifts of Forbidden's Knowledge. The sun rose over Mount Hermon with an uneasy glow, as though the heavens themselves hesitated to witness what was about to unfold. The watchers walked among humanity with veiled radiance, their presence stirring both wonder and fear in the hearts of those who beheld them. They spoke softly at first, offering comfort, wisdom, and glimpses of mysteries mortals had never dreamed to touch. One taught the forging of metal, showing men how to draw fire from stone and shape iron into weapons that could wound even giants. Another revealed the secrets of enchantments, whispering incantations that bent the unseen forces of the world to human will. A third traced celestial signs across the sky, teaching the reading of stars, the mapping of seasons, and the hidden rhythms of fate. Others unveiled the arts of pigments, cosmetics, and adornment, awakening desires that had slept quietly in the human heart. Knowledge spread like wildfire, illuminating the world with brilliance while casting shadows long enough to swallow nations. Mortals marveled at their newfound power, unaware that each lesson carried a cost written in the fabric of creation. The watchers watched with pride and sorrow, knowing they had crossed a boundary that could never be restored. Some felt the weight of their rebellion pressing upon them, yet they continued, driven by longing, curiosity, and the thrill of shaping a world. The earth itself trembled beneath the rise of new crafts, new weapons, new desires, and new ambitions. Whispers of change spread through villages and valleys as humanity stepped into a future it was never meant to hold. Above them, the heavens darkened, for every forbidden gift widened the rift between divine order and mortal will. And though the watchers taught with gentle hands, the seeds they planted would soon grow into a harvest of ruin. The watchers began teaching humanity arts and mysteries never meant for mortal hands: metalcraft, enchantments, celestial signs, and hidden sciences, setting in motion a transformation that will reshape the world and doom their own kind. Chapter 4. The Daughters of Men Drawn by Beauty and Desire. The watchers take mortal wives, and the first seeds of a new and terrible lineage are sown. The watchers walked among the valleys beneath Hermon, their celestial glow dimmed yet still bright enough to stir awe in every mortal who saw them. The daughters of men moved through the fields with a grace untouched by heaven's burdens, their laughter rising like music the angels had never heard. Desire, once a distant whisper in the hearts of the watchers, now grew into a fire that neither discipline nor memory could extinguish. One angel paused beside a well, watching a young woman draw water with hands steady and gentle, and felt his resolve crumble like dust. Another found himself returning night after night to the same village, drawn by a face that reminded him of the first dawn he ever witnessed. The leader, who had sworn the oath with unwavering certainty, now felt its weight press upon him as he gazed upon a mortal woman whose kindness softened even his rebellious heart. The watchers approached the daughters of men with voices softened, their once thunderous speech now trembling with longing and wonder. The women, unaware of the cosmic danger entwined with such affection, welcomed them with trust, curiosity, and the innocence of those who do not know they stand at the edge of a precipice. Homes were built, vows were exchanged, and the watchers took mortal wives, binding themselves to the earth in ways no angel had ever dared. The heavens shuddered at the union, for the laws of creation bent beneath the weight of a love never meant to exist. Whispers spread through the villages of radiant husbands who never aged, never sickened, and whose eyes held storms and stars within them. The watchers felt joy for the first time since their descent, yet beneath that joy lay a quiet dread they could not name. For even as they embraced their mortal brides, the world trembled, sensing the shift in its ancient balance. The seeds of a new lineage stirred within the wombs of the daughters of men, carrying both the brilliance of heaven and the danger of rebellion. And though the nights were filled with love, the earth itself knew that something vast and terrible had begun to take root. Drawn by beauty and desire, the watchers take mortal wives, and the first seeds of a new and terrible lineage are sown, a choice that will reshape the fate of heaven and earth alike. Chapter 5. The birth of the Nephilim giants of immense strength and insatiable hunger rise upon the earth, their presence warping nature and spreading fear across the land. The earth groaned beneath the weight of a new generation, born from wombs never meant to carry the blood of heaven. The children of the watchers grew with unnatural speed, towering over their mortal kin before their first seasons had passed. Their eyes burned with a strange, unearthly fire, reflecting both the brilliance of angels and the hunger of the world below. Villagers whispered of infants who could shatter wooden cradles with a careless stretch of their limbs. By childhood, they lifted boulders as easily as toys, their laughter echoing like thunder across the hills. Their footsteps cracked the soil, leaving deep impressions that filled with water and became new pools overnight. Animals fled at their approach, sensing the distortion in nature that followed wherever they roamed. Trees bent away from them, their branches trembling as though recoiling from a force older than creation's laws. Some Nephilim tried to be gentle, yet even their kindness carried danger, for their strength was too vast to be contained. Others reveled in their might, crushing obstacles and sometimes people, without understanding the fragility of the world around them. The watchers watched with a mixture of pride and dread, realizing too late that their children were not merely giants, but living breaches in the order of creation. Whispers of fear spread through the villages, stories of monstrous strength and unquenchable hunger traveling faster than the giants themselves. The sky darkened with each passing season, as though the heavens mourned the corruption spreading across the land. Humanity cried out for mercy, torn between awe and terror, unsure whether these towering beings were protectors or omens of doom. And beneath Mount Hermon, the ground trembled, for the birth of the Nephilim marked the beginning of a darkness that would soon swallow the world. Giants of immense strength and insatiable hunger rise upon the earth, their presence warping nature and spreading fear across the land, the first echo of a catastrophe born from Forbidden's union. Chapter 6. The cry of the oppressed humanity groans under the weight of the Nephilim's violence, and their cries rise to heaven, stirring divine wrath. The Nephilim strode across the land like living mountains, their shadows swallowing fields, homes, and hope alike. Villages that once thrived beneath the sun now trembled beneath the thunder of giant footsteps. Men labored endlessly to feed the towering children of the Watchers, yet nothing they offered could satisfy the giants' insatiable hunger. Crops vanished from the earth as quickly as they grew, devoured by mouths that knew no restraint. Livestock fled in terror, only to be seized and consumed whole by hands large enough to crush stone. Families abandoned their homes, carrying what little they could as they fled from the devastation spreading across the valleys. Mothers wept for children lost beneath collapsing walls, or beneath the careless strength of beings who did not understand their own power. Fathers cried out in despair as their fields were trampled, their livelihoods destroyed by beings born of heaven, yet bound to ruin. The Watchers watched helplessly, torn between love for their children and horror at the destruction they wrought. Some tried to restrain their offspring, but even their celestial strength faltered before the might of the giants they had sired. The cries of humanity rose like smoke from a burning world, drifting upward in waves of grief, fear, and desperation. Their voices trembled through the heavens, reaching the ears of angels who had long warned that such a day would come. The sky darkened as divine sorrow deepened into divine anger, for the suffering of the innocent cannot be ignored by the one who hears all cries. Thunder rolled across the firmament, not as a storm but as a warning, a sign that judgment was stirring in the highest realms. And beneath Mount Hermon, the ground shuddered, for the groans of the oppressed had reached heaven, and heaven had begun to answer. Humanity groans under the weight of the Nephilim's violence, and their cries rise to heaven, stirring divine wrath that will soon descend upon both Watchers and giants alike. Chapter 7. The Council of the Holy Ones. The archangels gather to judge the Watchers' rebellion, debating the fate of the fallen and the world they have corrupted. The cries of humanity rose like a storm of sorrow, reaching the highest realms where no mortal voice had ever dared to echo. The heavens trembled as the Holy Ones assembled, their radiance filling the vast expanse where time itself bowed in reverence. Michael arrived first, his armor blazing with the fire of divine justice, his eyes fixed on the corruption spreading across the earth. Gabriel followed, bearing the weight of every message he had ever delivered, his voice heavy with the grief of what had been foretold. Raphael came with healing light dimmed, for even his boundless compassion faltered before the wounds inflicted upon creation. Uriel descended like a pillar of flame, carrying the secrets of the cosmos and the burden of knowing what must be done. Around them gathered hosts beyond number, their wings forming a canopy of shimmering judgment over the celestial court. The cries of the oppressed echoed through the assembly, each one a testimony against the watchers who had forsaken their charge. Michael spoke first, declaring that the rebellion had shattered the boundary between heaven and earth and birthed a lineage of ruin. Gabriel warned that the Nephilim's violence would soon consume the world unless divine intervention halted their rise. Raphael pleaded for mercy, not for the Watchers' rebellion, but for the mortals suffering beneath the giant's unrestrained might. Uriel lifted his voice last, revealing visions of futures twisted by the Watchers' forbidden knowledge and the giant's insatiable hunger. The council fell silent as the weight of their decision settled upon them, heavier than mountains, older than stars. A decree formed in the heart of heaven, shaped by justice, tempered by mercy, and sealed by the will of the one who hears all cries. The archangels bowed their heads, knowing the judgment they would carry out would change the fate of both heaven and earth forever. The archangels gathered to judge the Watchers' rebellion, debating the fate of the fallen and the world they have corrupted, as divine wrath prepares to descend upon Mount Hermon. Chapter 8. The chains of judgment. Heaven's decree is carried out as angels descend to bind the Watchers, casting them into the depths to await the final reckoning. The heavens split open with a roar that shook the mountains, a sound not of wrath alone, but of sorrow sharpened into judgment. A host of angels descended in formation, their wings blazing like storms of living fire across the darkened sky. Michael led them, his sword drawn and burning with the authority of the decree sealed in the highest court. Gabriel's voice thundered through the valleys, proclaiming the sentence that no watcher could escape or deny. Raphael's light dimmed with grief, yet he did not falter, for the wounds inflicted upon creation demanded healing through justice. Uriel descended like a falling star, his presence illuminating every hidden sin the Watchers had tried to bury beneath the earth. The Watchers felt the weight of heaven's gaze upon them and trembled, for even their celestial strength could not withstand the decree. Some fled into the forests and mountains, but the angels pursued them with relentless purpose, their wings cutting through the air like blades. Others fell to their knees, pleading for mercy, but the cries of humanity echoed louder in the ears of the holy ones. Chains forged from divine fire wrapped around the rebels, binding their limbs with links that burned yet did not consume. The earth opened beneath them, yawning like a grave carved into the foundations of creation itself. One by one, the Watchers were cast into the depths, their voices swallowed by the darkness that awaited them. The mountains trembled as the pit sealed shut, trapping the fallen beneath layers of stone, shadow, and divine decree. Above, the angels stood in solemn silence, their wings folding as the last echoes of rebellion faded into the abyss. And the sky grew still once more, though the world knew that the judgment carried out this day was only the beginning of what was yet to come. Heaven's decree is carried out as angels descend to bind the Watchers, casting them into the depths to await the final reckoning, sealing their rebellion beneath the earth until the appointed day. Chapter 9. The cleansing of the earth. The corruption of the Nephilim forces a divine cleansing, reshaping the world and erasing the monstrous legacy of the Watchers' descent. The giants roamed the earth like living calamities, their hunger growing with every season as the land withered beneath their feet. Rivers ran dry where they drank, forests fell where they wandered, and mountains trembled beneath their unrestrained might. Humanity scattered like dust before a storm, seeking refuge in caves, deserts, and distant shores where even giants hesitated to tread. The cries of the oppressed rose higher than ever, a chorus of grief that pierced the heavens like a blade of sound. The holy ones heard the anguish of the world and knew that the corruption had spread too deep for healing alone to mend. The sky darkened with a heaviness that was not weather, but judgment gathering like a tide behind the sealed gate. Winds began to howl across the plains, carrying the scent of rain that had not touched the earth in generations. The Nephilim looked to the heavens with unease, sensing a power older and greater than their own awakening above them. The watchers, bound in the depths, felt the tremor of divine wrath ripple through creation, and knew their legacy had doomed the world. Clouds swirled into colossal spirals, their centers glowing with a light that was neither sun nor moon, but something far more ancient. Thunder rolled across the horizon, not in bursts, but in a continuous roar, like the heartbeat of a furious god. The first drops of rain fell heavy as stones, striking the earth with a force that shattered the silence of dread. Rivers swelled, seas rose, and the boundaries between land and water blurred as the cleansing began in earnest. The Nephilim roared in defiance, but even their titanic strength could not stand against the rising waters that swallowed mountains. And as the world reshaped itself beneath the flood, the monstrous legacy of the Watchers was washed away, leaving only echoes of what once defied heaven. The corruption of the Nephilim forces a divine cleansing, reshaping the world and erasing the monstrous legacy of the Watchers' descent. A judgment written in water, sorrow, and the will of heaven. Chapter 10. The silent peak of Hermon, Mount Hermon, stands quiet once more, its stones bearing the memory of the oath, the fall, and the shadow that forever changed the course of humanity. The floodwaters receded from the earth, leaving behind a world reshaped by judgment and washed clean of the giant's corruption. Mount Hermon rose above the renewed land like an ancient sentinel, its summit untouched by the waters that had swallowed nations. The winds that swept across its peak carried no cries of rebellion now, only the soft whisper a world beginning again. The stones that once trembled beneath the feet of 200 watchers now lay still, cold witnesses to a vow that had shattered heaven's order. The place where the oath was sworn remained marked by a faint, lingering glow, as though the mountain itself remembered the fire of that forbidden pact. No footsteps disturbed the summit, for neither angel nor mortal dared to tread upon the ground where heaven had been defied. The silence that settled over Hermon was not emptiness, but memory, a quiet echo of wings that had once descended in defiance and later in judgment. Far below, humanity rebuilt its homes, unaware that the mountain above them held the scars of a story older than their oldest songs. The Watchers lay bound in the depths, their voices silenced, yet their presence lingered like a shadow beneath the earth. The Nephilim were gone, erased by the cleansing waters, but the fear they inspired lived on in whispered tales passed from parent to child. Hermon alone remembered the full truth, the oath, the descent, the unions, the giants, and the chains forged in heaven's fire. The mountain stood as a monument to choices that had reshaped creation, a silent guardian of a history too heavy for mortal hearts. Its peak reached toward the heavens with neither pride nor sorrow, only the stillness of a witness who has seen the rise and fall of angels. And though the world moved on, Mount Hermon remained, holding the memory of a shadow that once stretched from heaven to earth. For in its silence lay the story of the Watchers, a story carved not in books, but in stone, judgment, and the unending patience of time. Mount Hermon stands quiet once more, its stones bearing the memory of the oath, the fall, and the shadow that forever changed the course of humanity, a silent monument to a rebellion that echoes through eternity. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. Until then, stay curious, stay aware, and keep searching the shadows. Take care.